Today's guest has been in the finance industry for over 30 years, and he's also been a great proponent of education for employees in their 401k plan, as well as retirement planning in general. All the way from Abilene, Texas, we have Ed McGowan. Thank you so much for being here today, Ed.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yes. So tell me how, I feel like the finance sector, we kind of get sucked into it, but how did you land in this area of finance?
Well, like Jerry Garcia said, what a long, strange trip it's been. Started off briefly when I first got out of the service with a brokerage firm. I was there all of 2 months. Took me a month to figure out what they were doing and a month to confirm it. And I walked out.
Okay.
I went to work for one of the national financial planning firms, and I was there for about 5 years. I got to a point where I was running a financial planning training program for first-year advisors. I left that company when 126 of us all quit our jobs together and started a broker-dealer in Detroit, Michigan.
Wow. So you've been working in a lot of areas of education in the finance sector, working a lot, serving for individuals, right?
Yes.
So what are all those different platforms of education that you've been working in? Were they all in with the institutions you were working for at the time?
Actually, well, yes. So it's all been tied into what you would call my day job. Initially, I started doing financial education seminars, quite frankly, to put it bluntly, as lead generation. I had first-year advisors who were aspiring financial planners, and if you're going to do financial planning, you kind of have to have clients to do that for.
True.
And so the initial seminars were, they were a marketing effort. Now, we were providing valuable education, but at the end of the day, the goal was to generate an interest among people to talk to us about financial planning services. In leaving that company, along with a colleague, I started the 401k department of my old company, and education took on a new wrinkle there, where it became a differentiator between us and other firms that were in the 401k business. Fast forward 20 years, I'm now at First Financial, and for the first time in my career, I'm actually able to pursue financial education almost for its own sake.
That's amazing. That's got to feel so much better than doing it for a sales effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm the primary administrator for our 401k. We have about 1,500 active employees in the plan, and I've been given virtually free hand to develop the educational programs for them, just to help ensure they wind up with a better overall experience.
Now, I have always enjoyed people who are passionate about things that they've built, but I would like to ask a challenging question. Is it actually landing with the audience that you were seeking out to educate?
I believe so. I believe so. And it started before me. So my predecessor in my job, by his own admission, was not a seminar guy. Okay, he was great at what he did. He was a fantastic administrator. To get up in front and talk in front of a group of people and do education wasn't his thing. So at one point, one of our portfolio managers filled in for him once and was never allowed to give it back.
Could he not speak human? What was his deal?
The portfolio manager was such an upgrade.
Okay.
Because he was much more he had a lot more background in public speaking. Probably had a little more passion around it.
Oh, they preferred him over the previous guy.
Yes.
Okay.
And my immediate predecessor was more than happy to give that up.
Okay.
So it was
not into public
more
speaking.
or less a win-win.
Okay.
And Yancey, the portfolio manager, had done some really good work with it. When I came in, I mentioned that I had a strong background in financial education, and I was very passionate about it. But I cautioned him that I said, the last thing I want to do is step on toes. I said, if you're doing this and you enjoy it, I don't want to step on any toes. He said, I will pull my toes out of the way. You step wherever you want.
Okay. Well, a hat like that has to tell me you're a good storyteller. So I have to.
Thank you.
I have to believe that it must be not just something that you're passionate about with giving this education, but you seem like you actually enjoy it.
Oh, I have a lot of fun with it. I have a tremendous amount of fun with it.
Are you a good storyteller?
That's really not for me to judge. Let's just say I enjoy it.
Okay.
I had a colleague that I started my department with, and we used to joke that in terms of presentation style, we were both heavily influenced by Buffett. In her case, it was Warren, and in my case, it was Jimmy.
Aha.
So,
Okay, I'm going to need a story from you. And I did a little digging, and I did hear from a little birdie that you did bodybuilding back in the day.
not that far back in the day, actually.
Yeah. It just a few years ago, really. Now, I'm sure that you have plenty of stories to tell from your bodybuilding days, and I am so curious. But I would love to hear what correlation that you discovered along that way, because I know that fitness, bodybuilding teaches you a lot about the things you're already doing. So I want to hear from your perspective. Tell us.
Oh, well, a little bit of background. You probably noticed I'm pretty old. I started lifting weights during the Jimmy Carter administration. And so in the 1970s, there were NFL teams that had only had strength and conditioning programs for a little over a decade.
Wow.
So
I mean,
none of us
not
knew
too long ago.
none of us knew anything. And we took the little bit of knowledge we had and we ran with it. And for most of my life, I would lift weights all winter so that come springtime I could hit a softball far enough I didn't have to run.
Oh my
That was the entire goal of the training, was I don't like to run and I want to be able to hit a softball far enough that, okay, I can just jog to second base, call it a double, and I'm good.
Okay.
Spent a year, won't get into all the details, but I spent a year on interferon, which is a form of chemo, in 2013. I got back out and I went back into the gym, originally with the goal just to get my strength back. And then I started dropping weight, and that turned into a bucket list thing that I wanted to actually get up on stage and compete. I had always talked about it when I was younger, never did it, and I figured, okay. At the time I was 50, so I set a show 5 years out to give me enough time to prepare. What was interesting was the parallels to, you brought up a great point. The bodybuilding is, it's an analog for so many things in our life. I realized very quickly the knowledge level that I brought with me from the 1970s was not going to cut it. So fortunately, in the intervening years, the internet had become a thing. And so I started doing a lot of homework on the internet. And there was a website called bodybuilding.com that was invaluable to me because they had a searchable database of exercises, searchable by body part. And so you could pick your weaknesses, you could look up the exercises, they were star ratings by the people who used the website. And most importantly for me, they had videos of proper technique. And what was fascinating was I'd been having a little bit of shoulder trouble while watching this website. There were 6 different exercises that the disciplined way that I was taught to do it was now being warned, whatever you do, don't do it this way because you'll hurt yourself.
Oh.
And so it was interesting that it was very difficult to find basic core information. Everything was designed, I guess, to get clicks, but it was all about shortcuts. It was all about how to do it faster, and really how to avoid doing the work. And I find the same thing on so many financial education resources. It's all about shortcuts. I used to run into it when I was in financial planning. The people that would come in and talk to me that wanted to grill me on our portfolio managers and our derivative hedging strategies and our expense ratios usually had a net worth of about $800.
So they're looking for the quick strategy.
And honestly, I think they're trying to cover up the fact that they're not doing anything. That's the difficult conversation that nobody wanted to have. It's like, all right, well, yeah, we can talk about derivatives, but why don't we talk about the fact you don't have any money? And what are you doing in terms of saving and fundamental investing to get there? And so much of, just last night I did an educational seminar for one of our customer companies. 15 minutes. That's all it took. I went in and I said, you know what, I'm here to talk about the 401k plan, and I've been out there half a dozen times. They know me. I said, y'all, this is not rocket science. If it was, they would not have me doing it. Put in enough to get the company match. Don't be afraid of volatility when you're young, and leave it alone and don't touch it. Isolate, just like anything else, if you isolate it down to a few core, easily remembered concepts, that's what's going to lead people to success.
That makes so much sense, because if we try to fire hose them with information, how do we know it's actually going to stick? I mean, you can't hold that much information in one session. So 15 minutes sounds like a pretty sweet spot. Is that what you found? I know that you're working on educational videos now. What's the sweet spot minute-wise that you think holds people's attention?
Actually, on the educational videos, this is where I've had a tremendous help from our marketing department. Or the gentleman that I talked about who kind of got press ganged into doing the financial education seminars before I got there, our CEO told him he wanted him to go on the road and do that seminar for every one of our locations.
Oh, that is a lot of travel.
That's 80 locations throughout the state of Texas.
Oh my goodness.
This guy had a full-time job as a portfolio manager. There's no way he could do it. And I asked him, I said, well, how are you handling that? He goes, I've been ducking him for the last year. Just hoping it wouldn't come up. So my idea, innovation is what happens when your aspirations outpace your resources.
Oh, I like that.
Thank you. I shamelessly stole it, so have at it.
I'll keep that going. We'll pay it forward.
But in my case, I had the idea that, well, why don't we just, the seminar that we've been doing for our new hires has gotten rave reviews. Why don't we just film it and make it available to all the employees? And I went to our marketing department, and a young lady there was great. She said, great idea. Nobody's going to watch an hour-long video. Not going to happen. Her suggestion was take it topic by topic and break it down into 3 to 5 minute sound bites, almost. And so that's what we've done. We are about 17 different seminars into it right now. It actually gives me the opportunity, something I might do a minute and a half on in a live seminar. If it's a 3 to 5 minute soundbite, it can actually go more depth than I would have in the seminar. So that's available to our employees. And what we're actually doing with it that I love, with the help of one of the best 401k record keepers in the business, we are targeting our employees. So from payroll, I'm able to get a list of everybody who's not putting in the 5% needed to get the full match. They all got sent a link to the video on understanding the match and how it works.
Oh, I see.
And the ones under 35 got the additional video on the time value of money.
And can you tell, are they watching this? Do you have-
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
Are they taking action?
First time out, we had 8 more people
That's fantastic.
sign up or increase, which, on 1,500, that's not a huge percentage change, but you got to look at it as a percentage of the people who weren't putting 5% in, and it becomes a much more significant number. Through a record keeper, I'm able to get a report of everybody who is not named a beneficiary on their website. And so they are all going to get emailed the video explaining understanding your beneficiary and how to use the website to update your beneficiaries. So what we're going to be able to do over time is fine-tune our 401k experience and just be able to isolate, for this quarter, what's the issue that we want to address.
And really, it is the way of the times where people are consuming information through videos. And so it makes sense to do these snack-sized videos that teach them something. How did you make sure that it was engaging? Because, those of us in the finance sector, we kind of forget how to speak human.
Yeah.
So how did you make sure that it was engaging?
Yeah, I've been blessed that that's nothing I've ever had a problem with. In some ways, I was fortunate. I had a nice break between college and getting into financial services, and walking around the state of Alaska with an M16 rifle in my hand. We didn't use a lot of financial terminology.
I can't imagine you would.
So I was able to kind of work that out of my lexicon a little bit. The way I'll say it in a mildly self-deprecating fashion is, I had to convert this stuff into English so I would understand it. And fortunately, I've never lost that finance English conversion, and that's just how I talk.
I think that's what's needed. We need more people like that. Do you think it's going to take more people that have an intuitive sense of communication, or can we train that, in your experience?
Intuitive sense of communication certainly helps, but that's not to say it can't be trained. Because I've taken people and trained them in this role before in my career, some just take longer than others.
So what kind of advice then would you, that's encouraging to know that it can be trained to some degree. What encouragement or advice would you give to those of us in the finance profession about creating content that would be digestible for other people?
I think a big one is know your audience, know who you're trying to impact. Okay, so when I do the education seminar for our new employee orientation, where I work, for example, I am not really targeting a newly minted MBA who's coming to work at the bank as an officer. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong, I will provide value to them. They're not the core of who I'm trying to reach. I'm trying to reach a 23-year-old at McGowan and get them to start putting money away for their retirement 10 years earlier than I did. So consequently, that's who I'm geared towards. That's who my language is geared towards. I think over the years I've developed a tremendous amount of self-confidence. I try to keep from crossing the line into cocky. It doesn't always work. That self-confidence allows me the luxury of, I don't feel like I have to impress anybody with my verbiage. I think there's a lot of people, particularly new people in the financial services industry, that feel they've got to get out there and use the highly technical terminology to build credibility and impress people. And you don't impress anybody by confusing them.
I like that. And the encouragement to stay away from buzzwords.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that you focused on one small group. You said a 23-year-old Ed McGowan. That is fantastic, because I think so many times we so desperately want to catch them all that we mix and confuse our messaging by trying to reach every single group at the same time. So thank you so much for your insight and your perspective.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. This is, hopefully it comes across as something I'm passionate about, and I love the opportunity to do this.
Yes, and thank you also for coming to Dallas, Texas.
Oh, my pleasure.